On the 6.2 assignment, it continues with our same dilemma, the ethical dilemma. And so what you really want to do is you want to have a plan. And I had said this in the 6.1 video, how I talked about how it's really important to have a plan already set up before this type of situation happens. And that's how you can really avoid these ethical dilemmas, is by already having a plan set up. So something that you want to consider when creating a plan is closely monitoring the students. So as an educator in the classroom, students, this is a really tragic event for anyone to go through. So you want to make sure that as the educator, you're monitoring your students to look for behaviors that may be depressive and so on and so forth, and to respond appropriately to those seen behaviors. Something else that you want to do is you want to provide suicide awareness education, so that way the students and even parents are being educated on suicide awareness, so that way they can see what may be certain signs of suicide, and so on and so forth. You want to make sure that you are informing all of the school staff, so that way they are aware of what's going on and cautiously acting upon that. You also want to inform all of the school families, so that way they can be informed, because unfortunately things that happen are there can be suicide clustering. So it's really important to inform families of what is going on, so that way they can monitor their own children from home as well. And with monitoring the students, it's important to not only do it directly when that tragic event has happened, but continuously doing that. So even months later, death takes a huge toll on people. So it's important to continuously be monitoring students to see how their well-being is. It's also important to provide services like grief counseling and so on and so forth for the students at the school, so that way they can get the proper services that they may need or want to look into. And also providing not only the students with opportunities for counseling, but informing parents of counseling opportunities and giving them information on how they could register for those types of services if needed. I think it's also important to maintain a routine, so that way the students aren't being completely thrown off. It's important to try and stay as normal as possible. So that's really important as well. As long as there's many important things with creating a plan for this type of tragic event. So those are some things that are super important when creating a plan, like a suicide prevention plan or a suicide action plan. So in the event that terrible event does happen, there are plans made to act appropriately. I also wanted to talk about social media, because one of the biggest problems with this dilemma was social media and how it was being, or technology in general, and how it was being used inappropriately. So as an educator, you are representing your own profession, your status as an educator, and you're also representing the school. So your social media, can be used negatively. If used negatively, can impact you negatively. From the Proethica, page 5 talks about some advice, some educational advice from an expert. And I'm just going to read a few bullets. It says, each district and school should have acceptable use policies and procedures outlining a standard of practice regarding communication with students and their parents or guardians that occurs both during and outside of the school day. And one of the points that I really liked at the bottom says, time needs to be built into educator meetings to discuss the challenges and solutions that arise with social media. Not only does this resolve challenges that all educators face, but it builds an implicit standard of practice within the school and community. I think that that's extremely important because with technology and social media becoming more prevalent and more used, it's extremely important to always be updating policies and reminding staff of policies, and always having that refreshed, so that way there's a less chance of there being an ethical dilemma. So building time into an educator meeting and discussing that would be extremely helpful to the staff and the whole school district as a whole. I think that as a future educator, thinking of myself now and reflecting, I think that if you do have social media, you just need to be extremely cautious with your social media. You need to keep it private, and you need to make sure that what you're presenting is appropriate and going to serve you as an educator and serve the school district, because you could get in some serious trouble for misusing your social media. And I also think that there needs to be appropriate usage of technology. In this case, Mr. Gull was texting a student, which was extremely inappropriate within the way he was doing it. So I think that you just always need to be cautious with the way that you are communicating with students, parents,